Welcome back to Maximum News. Sorry that there wasn't a show last week. I was dreadfully sick. I didn't know what way was up or down. It was my first time having the flu, so I definitely wasn't used to that. But we are back. Particularly happy to be back because one of my favorite games of all time, well, no, not just one of my favorite games, one of my two favorite games of all time are both getting remakes. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about Max Payne. Syb, hit that cello. Oh yeah, doesn't that get you in the mood? Oh, man,
cello is one of my favorite instruments because it's got a pretty wide range, more so than people think that it does, and that's why it's cool. Also, I know you were sick, and I gotta say, just for general reference in the future, just don't go swimming with Frank Drebin. It's just not good. He really likes to swim in open sewer. It's just not really good. And 20 points to whoever gets that reference.
Naked Gun, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Who Demand? Okay. Yeah. I tend to watch old spoof movies like that. They're still great, especially the first and second Naked Gun. But yeah, Max Payne, guys, I would have preferred a Max Payne 4, but I'm actually dreadfully happy about this. So much of my childhood was spent playing the bootleg wonder that is Max Payne 1 and 2. Just being able to bullet dodge and bullet time and just jump all over furniture shooting at people, it never got old. Obviously, if you try playing especially Max Payne 1 and to a lesser extent Max Payne 2 today, the controls don't really hold up as well as they do in Max Payne 3, which is why I think these games are very much in need of a remake. Not a remaster, but a remake, and it looks like that's what we're getting. According to a press release on Remedy's website, Remedy are the guys that made the original Max Payne, Alan Wake, Control, they said that both the first and second game will be released as one single title, 2 remakes on one disc. It is being developed by Remedy and not Rockstar, so I'm assuming it'll probably be more of Remedy's personal take. I don't know how much they're going to follow up on the precedent established in Max Payne 3, what with the gameplay and all that, but anyways, I think the reason why they're doing this along with the recently released Alan Wake Remastered and the announcement of Alan Wake 2, it seems to me that what Sam Lake over at Remedy is trying to do is he's trying to make his Remedy-verse more viable. Now, in case you guys aren't in the know about what's going on with the Remedy-verse, it was sort of set up in Alan Wake 1, over a decade ago, about how it might seem like Max Payne and Alan Wake sort of share the same universe, except in Alan Wake's universe, Max Payne is Alex Casey. And then the Remedy-verse was pretty much confirmed with Control, the game that came out in 2018, because Alan Wake actually shows up in that game, and specifically in the DLC. And it looks like they're trying to set up future installments where Alan Wake, Max Payne, Jesse Faden from Control, and the other guy from Quantum Break will show up in the same game and have all these wacky Sam Lake-esque adventures. The establishment of the Remedyverse and the remaking of these 2 classic games, it's got me so excited. It's something akin to sort of the excitement that I had building up to the culmination of the Avengers films, with Infinity War and Endgame, just all these beloved characters coming together. And Max Payne is definitely one of my favorites, and I can't wait to see what Remedy manages to do. Did you, Syb, ever happen to play the original Max Payne games 1 through 3? Did you like them? And how excited are you for the remakes?
I did. My brother had them when he was young. We were definitely not allowed to play that. Dude, but it was something I watched him play, basically the whole thing of. We have a theory when it comes to Max Payne, because he uses painkillers as a way to heal himself. We think that the first act is real, as far as his story goes, and then everything else that happens throughout the entire series is him in the hospital because he overdosed on painkillers.
Huh. So even the stuff when he goes to Sao Paulo and Max Payne 3 is just in his head? That's
the way we think. Well, we're kind of joking here because what would happen if you grab a giant bottle of painkillers and you just start throwing them back every 5 minutes, you're not going to end well. I mean, you're going to end up in the hospital at best, and you're going to have a really bad time of it. So that
actually makes sense, because you ever hear of a game that sort of came out around the same time that those games did called The Suffering? That you played that? Yeah, because the main character in that game, he takes painkillers all the time, just like Max Payne does. But unlike Max Payne, he's experiencing all these Silent Hill-esque delusions that are happening around him. So in a perverse sense, it sort of is a little bit more realistic.
And I mean, it gets worse once you're exploring around in an old abandoned facility that's been abandoned for 20 years, and you find a bunch of 25, 30-year-old painkillers, and you just start chugging them down. Again, not something that we encourage in any way, shape, or form. This is highly unhealthy. Don't do it. And that's why I enjoy poking fun at it, because it is kind of one of those things where it's that's kind of legitimately funny, right?
Yeah.
But at any rate,
go ahead.
It's a good game. I do wonder how behind the times it is, in the form of mostly with level creation, with level layout and stuff like that. Things have changed a fair bit. That it'll be interesting to see kind of how they upgrade that. Just the general world, open worldness, the feeling of the levels, the design, that kind of stuff. Are they going to run into issues with that? And so that'll be interesting. I'm a little concerned about that, but not very, right? That's kind of a minor thing to be worried about. Naturally, with any Rockstar / Take-Two game, I am naturally very worried about their army of lawyers and other related scum that tends to occupy those kinds of offices. That's a continuing concern for me. But I just hope that they, move past it. I don't understand why Take-Two and Rockstar think that the best thing for, growing the community growth of their games is to come down on anybody who they assume, right? They assume it's not evidence-based. It's just if they assume that you've made a mistake or you're causing a problem, it's time to yeet you right out of there and make you go bye-bye. It's that's an always pressing concern, and it's something that we've had to deal with them before, with friends of ours and whatnot who are just no longer online these days at all because of that.
Yeah.
So I am very concerned as to how they're going to handle community stuff, because a lot of old gamers like to, create things and like to mod things and stuff like that. And are they going to show up at, somebody's house with a battering ram and, and a bunch of lawsuits that make it so that they can never go on, access the internet ever again? These are genuine questions because they've done this before in the past, allegedly. So yeah, this is something that my biggest concern is their printing house. The studio seems to be a good studio. They seem to be well connected with this. So yeah, I hope they make a good game and don't screw it up.
Yeah, I hope that mainly just what happens in regards to the Rockstar side of things is that they're just going to distribute it, and anything else creatively speaking in regards to it, they're not going to be too involved with. They seem too busy with GTA 5 and GTA 6 at the moment to really care. I mean, they didn't really care about Bully. They don't seem to have any plans for Red Dead Redemption, if RD2 Online is any indication. So hopefully they'll just let Remedy and Sam Lake go ham. The one thing that I'm just wondering is whether or not they'll keep the Sam Lake face for Max Payne 1, or if they're just going to... it's serious business whether or not he's going to have the mug for the first game or not, because it's so iconic. But no, I'm just kidding. I have full faith that they're going to do the first two games justice by remaking them. And I hope that, most importantly, that in remaking, they finally do the nightmare levels justice and make them suck just a whole lot less than they did the first time around. And I say that as somebody who loves those first two games. Okay. Now, going from good news to semi-good, semi-bad news. We are going to give you some updates in regards to the whole Activision Blizzard thing. So, as we know, there were two major lawsuits that have been filed against Activision Blizzard. There was the big one that was filed last August with the Department for Fair and Equal Housing, Fair Employment and Housing. Yeah. And then there was a lesser one that was filed before that by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Well, that one just got settled, not the DFEH one, the EEOC one.
Yeah, the Fed one from, that there's people who work at Blizzard today who are in some way, shape, or form connected to that department that sued them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
and sued them for I did a really big thing on this a little while ago. On the Tuesday show, I went full bore into one of my character personas, and I did a joke line about this.
The haughty rich guy.
They sued them for less than what Blizzard makes in a day, for the years of pain and suffering and federal crimes. They were sued a grand total of less than 1 day's earnings.
How much did they make in a day?
That's after taxes.
Right, but yeah.
So they make like 20 to $25 million a day.
Right, okay.
And they were sued 18 million. And again, that 25 million, that 20 to 25 million, that's after taxes.
Mm-hmm.
So they sued them. They didn't even sue them like essentially they didn't even sue them for barely half of what that company makes in a day for using and abusing people for years.
Now, why do you think that is? Do you think it's just because they figured that was the biggest amount that they could reasonably make? Like, do you think?
It's because there's friends. There's a political system in the States that values friends in sorry, I was going to say friends in Hollywood, but that's still actually true. It's friends in Washington. If you have friends in Washington, and hey, turns out we accidentally just we cooked a river by pouring an acid chemical that we were supposed to destroy in a safe way. We just poured it down the river and just killed like 2 million years of biological life and growth in that river, destroyed the property of tens of thousands of people. Is there any way we could get a slap on the wrist there? Does anybody have a friend in Washington who can lobby for some lighter sentences on this stuff? And yeah, that's essentially allegedly what's happened. Right. Because again,
yeah.
They have people that work for Blizzard and work for Activision Blizzard. I keep saying Blizzard, but it's really Activision Blizzard.
Yeah.
The leadership at Blizzard doesn't actually have. They can't. I'm pretty sure, because I've been talking with a lot of employees, and I don't want to say this 100% because again, I haven't physically seen their work policies.
Yeah.
But I can say that I've heard from enough insiders and enough people that have worked for and formerly worked for Blizzard Activision. Blizzard has no firing power. Their team leaders, their leadership, none of them can fire or hire anybody. It's entirely through Activision. So Activision makes all these decisions, and Activision has all these friends who used to work in the federal wing of the government in previous administrations.
Yeah.
And we're not, because this is like these people have been here for a long time. This is like you got to go back like 2 or 3 administrations essentially. But yeah, people from that time, way back when, now work for Activision. And and again, this isn't the first time that we've seen a big company get, the feds come after them. And they come after them with essentially a slap in the wrist. And then the company just runs forward and says, "Oh, please slap me on the wrist. Oh dear. Oh, I feel so bad. Here's a dollar," which is essentially what they're paying. They're walking around. They show up in a $2.5 million car, wearing a $100,000 suit, watch, and accessories, and the court you lambasts them for a minute, and then the guy gives them $1. That's essentially what's happening here. That is a corresponding level of financial hurt and pain that's being dished out on these people, and that's what I would say the biggest problem here is. Yeah. Because again, previous companies have done this. They've run forward. They've gotten a slap on the wrist, and then they walk away. Now, in the case of Riot's case, that didn't work. They tried to, but the state level came down on them hard and said, no. You can't do this. This is you owe all of these victims full compensation. And full compensation for them was over $200 million. And now full compensation for Activision. And again, we have to see how this goes, but it's not looking great. It's not looking terrible, but it's not looking great either. It's looking like it's like a coin toss at this point.
In regards to the other one.
Coin toss at this point, yeah.
Yeah.
In regards to the other one, because the other one might be able to say, oh, well, we already paid for these crimes, and it's all sorted, and it was sorted by the federal authorities. The state authority has, they don't have the jurisdiction to up the punishment here. So they might not get away with that argument. They're certainly trying to. Because, it's going to save the company 250, 200 to, I think 250 is the low bar. It's like 250 north. So anywhere between there and $500 million.
Right.
And again, it's like, that's what that company makes in a year. So again, the rule now is that you can abuse your staff. You can abuse your the people that work for you. You can do straight up direct illegal things that are not allowed by any workers' code. And you could get away with it so long as you pay off the right people in the federal department,
or you just wait for the problem to like sort of fall out of public consciousness, like we're going to talk about in regards to another studio in a minute. But go ahead.
Yeah, so so all of these things kind of irritate me. All these things really make me mad. I don't like the fact that this is the case yet again, and I don't think that this punishment is good, and I think that Activision Blizzard is going to live to regret it, because this stuff has a bad habit of coming back to haunt you, and it is very, 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 very foolish for them to just think and believe and think that they could just make this problem go away. Right. It's like, when you make a problem go away, you're not making the problem go away. You're just hiding it from sight. And in the case of, let's see, let's use a car and a construction terminology. If you cracked your foundation and you didn't fix it properly, that's going to have disastrous effects on you down the road. If your engine oil light comes on and your oil is like ding, 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 oil, 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 and you just put a piece of tape over it and keep driving your car, eventually things are going to come back to bite you in the butt. And that's exactly what's been happening here. It's exactly what's been happening at Activision Blizzard. Oh my Lord. Activision Blizzard for decades now, for nearly a decade now. And it's because first thing they did is they chased out a lot of like people who originally promised to have like say in the company. A lot of people. The director of Diablo 1 and 2. Sorry, I think he's just the director of Diablo 2. He was on the team, I believe, for Diablo 1, but especially Diablo 2. The director for Diablo 2 got chased out. A bunch of the writers for World of Warcraft, just their whole thing, not just World of Warcraft, but like Warcraft, 1, 2, 3. A lot of those like core writing staff, they got chased out.
Yeah.
These were people who were promised when they got sold off to Bobby piece of shit. When he got in there, he told them, oh yeah, we value all your opinions, and then he slowly like made them leave, or gave them like you could make anybody leave a company in a number of ways. You could convince them that they're smart enough to start their own company when they're not. Or maybe they, maybe they are, maybe they're not, whatever. But you can get rid of them by that way. You can get rid of them by like just like making their every single day a living hell for them, and that's relatively easy to do.
Yeah,
and so on and so forth. And so they've lost over the years. They've lost their leadership. And again, people want to blame Mike. I don't think it was Mike because.
He didn't help, but it's not mainly his problem.
But that's my point. Is like he didn't help, but that was kind of the point. Like right. whenever he had certain things brought to him, even when employees brought things to him themselves, tried to talk to him themselves, he would do the smart thing in his eyes, and he would contact HR and say, "Hey, so and so told me about this problem, and it's kind of concerning. I don't like hearing about this kind of stuff. I want to make sure that stuff is being right here." And again, this is from what I heard from multiple bunch of people in multiple different ways. And then HR would say, "Oh, yes, we're in the process of handling it. They weren't supposed to contact you. We're so sorry about that." And he's like, "Well, I mean, they seemed really upset about it. Oh, don't worry, sir, we've got it under control. And then they would go and they would just absolutely dump on the person who went to Mike about it. And they would just like put the pressure on them from going from like 1 to 100.
Yeah.
Right? Like whatever it was before, they've just increased it 10 times more. And they're starting to like, and there's threats and stuff. And it's like this stuff has been well documented in the cases. And yeah, so that was a major problem. Like a major problem. This is huge. This is not good. This is not good in any way, shape, or form. And again, for on the other side of the argument, some people are like, well, he wasn't really doing what he could do. He wasn't doing what he should do. Well, what he should, and again, it's like what he wanted to do was being like I'm saying this weird. What I think he was what he would have done if he was like fully aware of the situation wasn't what he ended up doing. Obviously, mm-hmm. He ended up doing a lot less. And yes, that's a failure on his part because he didn't assume that his own PR department given to him by, Activision would be essentially like just kind of going out of their way to screw him and his employees over. And in that case, that is his fault. But I point to this now and I'm like, I don't like when Bobby came in, he made it every year was harder and harder and harder for Blizzard people, original Blizzard people. Some of them weren't nice. A lot of them were. To speak up and have control and have say so in the company. A lot of Activision people came in and looked down on the Blizzard people and kind of snidely, made their life more terrible. And again, that's not everybody. That's not every single person, but that's just, I'm going to the things that made change there, right? Because there's people who show up, they do their job well, and then they go home, right? They don't do any of this other stuff. Then there's other people who show up, decide that it's a great time to go, rolling around on the floor in women's work cubicles, trying to like peek under their skirts. It's like there's a big distinctive difference between those two groups of people, and the group of the people that were like good were slowly getting replaced over time, or just weren't, paying attention to the things going on around them. Again, neither case is good, but and it's a mess. So I look at this whole situation and I think that Activision Blizzard is just making this worse for themselves and worse for themselves in the future, because when you're poisoning your own well, you eventually have to drink from that. And eventually that's going to kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fallout from last year, it was so unusually public, and the circumstances surrounding their merger with Xbox and how Bobby's going to soon leave and the replacement of certain employees with other employees. And also one other thing we neglected to mention was how they're actually going to be converting over 1,000 US-based temporary and contingent QA workers to full-time and increasing their hourly rate to $20 an hour. That's good.
Well, it's good in the sense that, so the average job, like what if you go to California and you look up this job, your average pay is going to land you typically around $30 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Blizzard was paying these people $10 an hour. Like, that's
evil.
That's evil, because that's like below poverty level for the States.
Yeah, like
that's ridiculous.
But they were able to get it to happen because they're Activision Blizzard, and they were working off of their the recognizability of their brand. But now that brand is tarnished to a great degree, and they're going to have to deal with the serious fallout if Diablo Immortal comes out, Diablo 4, Overwatch 2, those come out, and they aren't god tier games like so many of the past Blizzard titles are. So it's going to be interesting. Thankfully, things seem to be pointing in a positive direction for the employees and for just renovating Activision Blizzard as a whole. But stuff like this does make us point out that we still need to be vigilant. We still have to pay attention to the other lawsuit. Hopefully that proper justice is meted out in that regard, but it's going to take a little while before we get a proper verdict from that. But we do actually have some good news to share with you guys aside from that. But before we get to that, I think it would be appropriate if we talked about Ubisoft. I mean, like we did have it on the docket to talk about at the end of the show, but I think it'd be appropriate if we go into that right now. You showed me a little bit of this, Syb, about how there have been allegations against Ubisoft, very similar to the ones against...
A lot of them, and really bad. And these aren't new either.
Yeah.
I mean, for people who've been listening to the show for a long time, I have always been annoyed / angry with Ubisoft in general. Because it was a decade ago when these problems were hitting the news, and people were digging into them. And a bunch of fanboys and a bunch of journalists came out and defended Ubisoft, which was weird because the same journalists were attacking fans for the exact same thing. But see, the difference is the fans weren't paying these guys under the table. Ubisoft was. And I can say that, and I say that because again, it's like I've known a lot of stuff. I have a lot of stories that I can tell you. I could tell you that Ubisoft has always been full and mostly run by terrible, terrible people who regularly abuse people under them, who regularly think that it's okay to mock and make fun of other people based off of, typically their bodies and their sex and their gender and all this other stuff. And I've been saying this for ages. And these filthy game journalists have been hiding this stuff because the games coming out are good or because they're being paid under the table. And that is 100% accurate. And that's 100% true. Ubisoft France operates more like a mob than it does an actual business. It's pretty disgusting. They have, and again, it's just check the news. Just check the reporting on this stuff. Team meetings and strip clubs, that kind of stuff and again, this isn't like a bunch of young, horny, 19, 20-year-old guys, deciding to go to the strip club for because they're 19-year-old horny guys. This is the 45, 50 and 60-year-old company heads going to the strip club to hold a massive meeting there whilst getting lap dances. And again, it's like some people are like, "Oh, that was just Ubisoft in Paris. That wasn't Ubisoft in other places. Their other studios are fine." No, their other studios are not fine. Ubisoft Toronto got the what was it, the Game of the Year award, and it's like, great. Great. You guys realize that studio's full of not full of like general people. There's I would say that there's a good number of them. There's regular devs there, but most of the higher up devs there are pieces of garbage. And you guys, and again, you guys as in not the audience, you guys as in the journalistic class who told us, "Oh yeah, we know what we're talking about." Yeah, well, the top three, executives, are leaving the company, and employees in Toronto are gravely concerned about harassment. Again, nothing new. This has been here for years. This has been here for absolutely years, and it's really easy to see that. One of the things that one of the meetings that I got info on, and I've said this a number of times, a bunch of executives from Ubisoft were sitting around a table laughing when they introduced female playable characters for the first time right next to dogs, and they made a joke about, haha, now people can play the B word. Like, come on. Like, you think these people are nice? You think these people are kind? I've never, ever, ever, Ash likes some of the Ubisoft games. I can't stand to play any of the Ubisoft games. Any of them. I have not played an Ubisoft game, I think, other than like South Park. Which, I mean, that it's not it was.
It's less South Ubisoft Park and more Matt and Trey.
Yeah, it's just like every time I play one of their games, I feel gross and sick, like I need to take a shower, because it's still there. There's still all these problems there. And again, it's like me and a lot of other people were raising these concerns for over the past 10 years during Gamergate and all that stuff. And there were people who were, oh yeah, I'm on the right side of history on this one, and they're taking money under the table, propping up Ubisoft as an okay company, because again, you look back on the time, you look at all the pressure put on game developers. There wasn't a lot of pressure put on Ubisoft. I wonder why, when they were some of the worst people. And that little joke about the B words that you can finally play, that they're giving the players finally an ability to play the B words, that happened right in and around that period of time. So again, these people are disgusting, and again, by these people I mean the executives at Ubisoft and the journalists who cover for these people. And if you're not one of those two things, I'm obviously not talking about you. So, obviously, commiserate with me, please. It's disgusting. It's been disgusting for a long time. And I'm sick on it. I've been vocal about Ubisoft for years, and I have way more stories, and nobody's been interested.
Yeah.
Nobody's been interested. We talked to tons of people in the industry. We talked to one of the biggest game news shows a couple of years ago, and they told us, look, there's some things that we're going to report on because, bad news sells in certain cases, but we're not touching, there's certain stories that we're not going to touch because we were told not to touch them.
By who?
Yeah, well, by the people paying these guys under the table, clearly.
Right? Yeah,
or promising them a job. And that's the dumb thing, is in a lot of these cases there were a lot of in the cases of governmental corruption, corporate corruption, journalistic corruption. People sell out for so cheap, it's not even funny. It's not even funny. Some of these people who twisted the news and told us, oh yeah, we're not going to accept your info because, we know about this problem. We're just not covering it, because we were told not to. And some of those people, they're not selling out for 10 grand under the table. They're not selling out for $1,000 under the table. They're selling out for a pat on the back at some like mixer 3 months down the road. Like, what?
Yeah.
How? Like, how is that worth anything to you? And again, you look at some government corruption. You look at some government corruption where people are selling out their entire country for like $5 to $10 million. Like, a country's worth infinitely more than a couple $1,000,000. But if you were gonna put a physical price tag on it, you probably say like 100, 200 billion, probably, depending on the country. Probably trillions.
Yeah, if it's like the US.
Based on other countries, and they're selling it out for a few $1,000,000 under the table. What the hell is wrong with these people? Like, and that's the thing that's just disgusting. So, I don't know if you can tell I'm really angry about this subject.
But in regards to Ubisoft, like, what is it that's like sort of come to light in the last week regarding the lack of effort going on around the whole allegation problem?
It's just been a resurfacing mostly of all of these companies, or sorry, all these reports coming out that they
haven't done anything.
There's some serious problems, and and yet they're given these Canadian Game Awards gave out the Canadian Game Studio of the Year, Ubisoft Toronto. Even then, again, it's like none of these reports are new. These reports have been here for years, as recent as last year and going back to 2020 and even 2019 about the horrendous working conditions at the Toronto studio. And yet somehow they've managed to win an award. Oh, gee. I wonder how that happened. I wonder who's greasing what wheels over there. You guys are a joke.
Yeah.
Again, not you guys, the audience.
Right.
You guys, the Canadian Game Awards. What a joke. What an absolute joke. What a joke when we were just talking about the Blizzard thing. I believe it was MSNBC, or it might have been it was one of the big corporation media companies in the States. Sat down with Bobby Kotick a week before all this stuff hit last year. A week before it. And they were interviewing him on oh, what an amazing company he's got and how much, like, did you guys do zero, like absolutely zero, like background, like investigative journalism at all? You didn't even like, you know, bother to like hit somebody up, let alone like do something like more sneaky, like, you know, sneak somebody in to take pictures of files. Oh, I remember when that was a thing. Right. Remember back in the day when journalists would go undercover, you know, get a job at a company, go into the records department, discover the, you know, fact that they were dumping like, you know, pollutants into public water, that they were doing, you know, these really greasy like backroom deals with countries that were openly hostile to them. Yeah. You know, it's just this Aaron Brockovich. Remember that stuff? Remember when reporters actually did, you know, actually dug in and found out information and actually reported it with honesty and integrity? Yeah, that was a day that we don't see that anymore.
Was MSNBC actually like that at some point before they became like the left-wing equivalent of Fox News?
I don't think I don't think they were ever really that good. I really don't. Like I think it's like most of them weren't. Like you go back, even when you go back to the Cronkite era, it's like there was still people doing things wrong. I mean, you go back to the 30s and the 50s, and even back then you have all these problems. And you have these people, there were people even back then who were willing to sell out for a buck. And the Fifth Estate is kind of a joke because as important as it is as an institution and as a generalized concept, the minute that gets institutionalized, you just usually end up headed down a really bad road. And because it's not institutionalized and there's no, you know, set rules on it, you can never be assured of it to begin with. It's I feel like the Fifth Estate, the you know, that's what in North America we mostly refer to as the media.
Yeah.
The media that reports on, you know, everybody else. I really think that it's always got to be done by individuals, by small readers, small newsrooms, because the minute they start getting big, you know, the minute they get too big or the minute they're too small, it's just there's not enough accountability there, and it just flies out the window like it is here with, you know, in Canada. It's really bad in Canada. It's really bad.
Yeah. In regards to Ubisoft, guys, if there's anything important that you should take away from this, and the fact that, you know, little seems to have been done in regards to the allegations that have been made against them, remember like how huge the whole Activision Blizzard thing was last year and continues to be. You have it within your power to inform other people and to put the pressure on these companies in order to get them to change. Really, all you have to do is convince all your buddies to not patronize these companies. Don't buy anything that Ubisoft does. Don't buy anything that Activision Blizzard does until at least they change their behavior. You know, for some of you, maybe their behavior's gone too far. You're not going to want to buy any of their stuff again. But, you know, other people are willing to be a little bit more merciful. And maybe we can if things continue to go down a more positive route. It depends.
Again, there are great studios that we don't see or hear these problems from. And there's a lot of them, actually. There's more. There's
Remedy. There's IO. There's From Software. There's Insomniac.
Yeah, and not to mention the thousands of indie studios that are making great products, that are working on great concepts, that technology will improve to the point one day where you don't need these gigantic teams of you know, tens of thousands of people, where a lot of these problems seem to be the worst of the worst. You know, you don't need those companies. You know, I'll throw this one out. I talk a lot about, you know, indie companies, but here's one. It's called Sorcery. Swordcery. So it's SWORDCERY. And it's made by Temple Door, made and published by Temple Door Games. Was looking at this earlier today. Its game is obviously a little ways away. They're working on some good stuff. They got a playable kind of like an early sneak peek demo that you can play, and the game looks great. You know, the game looks really good. I'll also throw out Stolen Realms. You know, another great great game. It's like this stuff has been. There are more and more like small team developers that are working on projects that are really good and that have super good potential, as well as big companies, like Larian, that's working on masterpieces that we're getting. And again, I think I really think that they're doing the best job they can there, because us being able to see and give feedback has already resulted in several gameplay changes, because it's just better to do it this way. It's more interactive. It gives more, creativity. It allows for more flexibility. It's just nicer. It's a nicer feel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're seeing that in Larian, and we're not seeing that kind of stuff come out of these major studios. EA doesn't have a department where they're like, hey guys, we really want to hear what you, the player, has to say. They laugh at that concept that you, the player, gets to, let them know what they want. If you don't like it, don't buy it. That's their go-to. So yeah, this is kind of an embarrassment. So
anyways, guys, we're gonna go on to a bit of positive news real quick. I've actually got to go in about 10 minutes, so we'll just do the game announcements. Okay.
Let's hit this real quick.
Okay. All right. Oh, sorry. I thought you were about to say. Okay.
So I'll start with Tencent is shutting down streaming. That's kind of a small news point, but it's very interesting. China is becoming a very unfriendly place for video games.
To their detriment.
I think is actually. I literally think this is probably one of the best things that could happen to video games.
Yes.
Please. Can we have giant governmental parties cut themselves off from gaming? Please.
Right. Now Australia. Sorry, go ahead.
So new game Star Trek is coming out with a new game. Now there is the Star Trek MMO, and that's actually been going on very strong for a very long time. It's not the best game. I did play it originally. I go back to it. I think I went back to it about 2-3 years ago. It's really decent, but I kind of got played out on it. But they've added a ton of story stuff. This game is a new game off their new animated series, so this is actually more for kids, because there's a new series. No, it's not the. Sorry, I should specify. It's not the animation one that most people are thinking of. It's kind of like a comedy Lower Decks thing. That Lower Decks is the name of that show. This one is different. It's based on Star Trek. I think it's called Prodigy, or something like that. Progeny. No,
Progeny or Prodigy?
Prodigy, maybe. It's one of those things. So what it is, it actually stars Captain Janeway, as she helps a bunch of non-Starfleet species individuals try to escape from like deep in the, I believe it's the Delta Quadrant. So it's kind of going back a little bit to form there. It's very much aimed at kids. It's not 2-dimensional. It's 3D computer generated graphics. I watched the first season and I was like, well, it is better than Picard. So, right. I guess I again, it's not very like true to form, and like if you look at like Next Gen or DS9 or Voyager, it is far more closer to Discovery, and in that there's just some special cool people. And I agree that there is some special cool people. Elon Musk is a great example of them. But the fact that they just have really poorly written stuff, and then finally, tone.
Hold on a second. Who's developing the Star Trek game?
This one is I lost it in the notes.
Okay.
Talk about the new
the new Tomb Raider. Okay. Well, while he's bringing up which studio it is, new Tomb Raider game is coming. So during Epic's State of Unreal event, Crystal Dynamics, the people behind, most recently I think it was Guardians of the Galaxy. Yep, which people generally seem to like. They just confirmed that they're working on a new Tomb Raider game. Unreal Engine 5 will be powering it, which is I'm happy about. Like ever since they showed that Matrix demo, Unreal Engine 5 looks tight. Development though has just started. So if I were to estimate, I would say maybe like a 2025 release for the new Tomb Raider game, which will put it like 7 years away from the last Tomb Raider game, which was 2018's Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider is just such a mainstay in the video game canon that I felt compelled to bring it up. Unfortunately, I never had the opportunity to play any of the more recent Tomb Raider games, even though I heard at least the first one and Rise of the Tomb Raider were really, really good. I heard iffy things about Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Maybe this will be the time where I can sort of get back into the series. Maybe they can do sort of like a God of War type reboot for it and bring something new to it. Either way, I'll make an attempt to try and play it this time around. I got a question about that for you, Cy, but quickly, did you get the name of the studio?
Yeah, so it's called Outright Games. These guys work with a lot of Nickelodeon type projects. They make like a lot of like stuff for based off of like kids shows and stuff like that.
Okay.
They have a bunch of really cool games. They have done Fast and Furious Spy Racers, which is apparently way better than any other Fast and Furious video game. They've got Hotel Transylvania, My Little Pony, Ryan's Rescue Squad, like just a lot of kids stuff. And again, this show that I'm talking about, the Prodigy show, it is a kids show made by Nickelodeon, and it is very Star Trek feeling, and again more so than I think Picard has been, and way more so than that other stupid Discovery show. Oh my god, what a piece of garbage that is! They can't get their lore straight. And no, I don't like the show because they can't get their lore straight. Not because of like certain actors. I think there's certain actors that have been on the show that are terrible. They're not very good actors, but I think there's other actors that have been on the show that are perfectly good actors.
Yeah,
I'm not angry for the typical reasons that some people
try to say that people are angry. Yeah.
I don't like it because there's a bunch of like rules in science fiction in the early Star Trek series that apparently these writers didn't bother to pick up on at all. And I hate that. I hate it when they throw away continuity and lore because, they just want to make something cool. Mm-hmm. It's just shove it. Just shove it, please.
Right.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
Anyways, I wouldn't Star Trek. I hope that this game gets good because I think that if this game is good and the show continues to be good, and like I said, if you're a hardcore Star Wars fan, check out Prodigy. It's Prodigy. So yeah,
Prodigy. Yes,
Prodigy. Check out Prodigy because it's
like the band.
It's actually an interesting show. It's got some interesting characters in it. Would like to see more of it. It's something that I would be able to introduce to kids to get them interested in the series, because I still think one of the greatest things in television history was the last couple seasons of DS9. DS9 is by far DS9, especially the Pale Moonlight, is one of the best things that has ever been on television ever. And I think that is something that I would hope I can show, my kids and get other people interested to review that in the future. I was surprised by the number of people who've never watched DS9. And the DS9's first two seasons, first season was really rough. Second season, even rougher in some ways, shape, or form. But after that, it really picks up. And then the last couple of seasons are, again, not perfect, but one or two of their episodes, absolutely perfect. Mm-hmm. Pale Moonlight is one of the best shows, and you really have to watch the whole series to get to that point. But for most people, I think that they would agree that it's one of the best television things ever. If you're interested in TV, you should definitely check out DS9. But yeah, fingers crossed that this helps to push the Star Trek brand back in the right direction. Mm-hmm. I'm being told that their new series with Pike is looking good. I haven't checked it out yet. We'll see.
Okay, cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for this episode of Maximum News. Thank you for joining us. Once again, sorry that there wasn't an episode last week, but we are back to a regular schedule, provided that, God forbid, I don't get sick with something else again, or Side does.
Stop swimming in open sewage.
Right. Everything.
I know you're working for the police academy, but still.
Everywhere I look, I'm reminded of my wife. Syb, I want to thank you as always for doing this show with me. Can you just tell other people about the main channel real quickly before we tune out?
Check out the main channel. We're doing just guides up there, guides and lore stuff. We're going to be hitting a bunch of new games this year. Real hard. Check out Triple S League on the YouTube, and then on a whole bunch of other places. We're on Twitter and Getter and a few other places. We're really trying to push more, especially on Twitter more recently, because I think the guy trying to get us off of fossil fuels is somebody who's worth following. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
And then you can just find me on all the different forms of media, just at Max Derrat. We'll put links to my stuff and Syb's stuff down in the description box below. Thanks, guys, and until next week when we do this again, I want to remind you, as always and as per usual, stay yellow.